The first item of business is the approval of the April 11th, 2019 minutes. People want to take a moment to just peek through those, or if they've already read them. We're looking for a motion to approve. Okay.
One was for the Bocce court. For the Bocce court, I was wondering, it made it sound like we approved what they had as is, but I remember people having some reservations about the lighting in particular and maybe some other details. So I wondered, I didn't see that reflected in the vote or the motion. So is that something that should be corrected, or is that addressed, or was that such an early concept drawing that we don't need to worry about that at this point?
I can go back and listen to it to make sure that that wasn't part of the motion to separate that out. But the comments, she took all the comments that the commissioners gave, and then she'll come back with another design with those as part of the 95% design.
Thank you, Brian. Any other questions or a motion?
I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Do we have a second? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. And with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item.
I think we have 2 abstain, though. Is that correct?
Oh, 2 that weren't here, yeah. So the next item on the agenda is the public comment section. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on items that are not going to be covered on the agenda later on. So if you have a general public comment that does not relate to other items on the agenda, you can step up to the podium and make that comment at this time. It looks like we don't have any public comments, so at this time we'll start with the announcements, and I'll ask first, Shelley, if you want to share any staff announcements with the group.
Thank you. I have a really long list, and I'm going to go fast, but I thought that I would start by saying happy Bike to Work Day. This is a picture of my daughter Finley and I. We actually participated in Bike to School Day over in Berkeley and visited the Energizer station. And May is also Bike Month for the Community Center. I've given you guys a few flyers of things coming up just for your reference, but we start Bike About Town on May 17th. And we have a Bike In movie night on May 24th. All this information is on the city's website. Also coming up is the Play Like a Girl event, and I think you guys have a poster for that, which is on June 2nd. And that event is a chance for girls to check out different sports and possibly, hopefully, get interested in trying them in a more official way. And new this year for the Play Like a Girl event is something that we're calling Sporty Shorts. It's women's sports films that are empowering girls to get involved in sports, and it's from the Women's Sports Film Festival. And it is sponsored by Luna Bar. This year it's going to be on May 30th, and it's at 6:45. We've already sold, although the tickets are free, you still have to get them. 239 tickets for that out of the 350, so we're looking forward to that big event. A couple more, I'm just going to keep rolling through it. Exciting news on the soda tax classes. Part of the recommendation that you guys gave for this year was free cooking classes for adult and youth. And I lost my little update on that one. Oh no, here it's up. Sorry. Too many pieces of paper. We have actually sold out of all the youth cooking camps. They were all free to residents. And we did have 14 non-residents that actually paid the regular fee for that. And all of the adult free classes are also full, and they all have full waiting lists, so that's exciting. That's 114 kids that are taking cooking classes in camps, and then 50 for adults. So nice, nice job. Good recommendation that is paying off. We also have all the bottle filling stations going, almost all in. And I will say the one at the community center just went in last week, and it has a little counter on it. So we've already saved 245 plastic bottles in like 6 days. So we also started our free classes in the park, and the first one started on the Albany Greenway on Tuesday at the fitness court, which is thanks to you guys for getting that accomplished. I haven't heard the numbers of how many were there. I know right at the beginning there were 6 or 7 that were ready to go. But there's a whole list in front of you of the ones coming up next. There's 2 starting this Saturday. One is Tai Chi in the park, and that's Memorial Park. And the other one is a caregiver boot camp with, you can bring your infant or toddlers with you, and that is at Ocean View Tennis Courts. And again, those are all free. Then one quick thing, you guys did a lot of input into this year's soda tax, and the council approved the expenditures for the next session, and they approved more bottle filling stations. They're looking at City Hall, Senior Center, Solano Avenue, and San Pablo for those, and possibly another along the Greenway. And then they again approved the free nutrition cooking, and they added gardening to those classes, and the fitness in the park classes that you guys recommended. If you didn't follow that, the crossing guard was approved, Safe Routes to School program, so bike safety program, and then a program that is in the schools for young kids, which is Healthy Me, Music, and Movement. So looks like a great lineup of things going. And that was it. I got them all. Thank you.
I just want to compliment Shelley and her team on the incredible, rich, diverse range of programs that you all undertake for the community. It really is pretty impressive. So I also saw the Bike to Work Day at the Albany location this morning, and it was full of people, which was really exciting to see. Any announcements from commissioners?
I'd have one quick announcement. The Chamber of Commerce has opened its nominations for Youth of the Year. This is something we do every year. We've been doing it for decades. We're not really sure, records are lost in time, but we're looking for, if anybody of you work with, service organizations or groups and you know of a youth looking for incoming seniors, so they're juniors now, and want to nominate them, the prize is a $1,000 scholarship, so it's not bad, and they get to be on in the stroll parade. They have a dinner in their honor and the like, so consider volunteers.
And I forgot, you can do yours. Do you have?
Is that age? Hi, I'm Liam Kelly. I'm a city employee. Is that age strict?
Well, it's strict. If we get a lot of nominees, then we're going to opt for the one that fits.
Okay.
If they're already seniors, if they're younger, we'll just wait.
It would be a younger thing.
If they're younger, then wait.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I forgot to, if I can just, I will have a senior center that will just attack me if I don't remind people. May is also Older Americans Month, and they have a couple events coming up. One tomorrow, which is a Mother's Day dinner, and then they have Brushes and Brews next week on Thursday. So those of you who work from home between 12 and 3, you can have a local beer and paint at the senior center. So thank you.
I had a question for Shelley about the compost giveaway to get rid of all the I got 2 bags. I was very excited.
I'm glad you asked. It was part of also a Friends of Albany cleanup day. We partnered together so that people could come and do both. We had 50 volunteers at the cleanup, and they did a great job. Thank you to the Community Foundation for Pizza. And I believe they gave away almost all of it except for a pallet, and then they brought those over to the Albany Community Garden so that they could use the remaining bags. So.
I think I only have one announcement that maybe, Shelley, you can add to is the dog park survey, which I think when is that going to be posted?
Yeah, that'll come out tomorrow in the e-news, the link to the final dog park survey. And then next week, I'll get my talented people to get it on our social media, and we'll do a posting on the city's website. Yeah, thanks.
Any other announcements? Okay, so very excited to have with us a new member of the Albany staff who's going to talk with us about youth and teen services. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, do I need to talk into this? Okay, cool. I'm going to do my slides. So I'm Heather Posner. I'm the Senior Recreation Supervisor for Youth Services, and I want to share our big vision. We're doing a lot of really exciting new stuff. Just so you know a little bit about me, I have been working in education for a few decades now, and let's not talk about how many years. And I spent a lot of my career working at the Bay Area Discovery Museum in Sausalito, where I ran camps and family classes, and then I also founded the first museum preschool in California inside the Discovery Museum. Magical. And I've been a preschool director. I grew up in El Cerrito. I'm really enjoying working in Albany. It's like having the city as the museum campus. We just have everything amazing to do with kids. I have an 8-month-old, so that's also magical and a lot. So let me lay out our vision for you. Also, wait, just look at these magical children. They're so great. This is at Ocean View Park, and the tree is back there. Okay. We want to make youth services 100% more magical. That's my tagline. You'll hear me use that word a lot. It's just the way I feel about working with children. Every moment of that should be magical. And especially when you're working in out of school time, you really have the ability to just focus on the richness of non-classroom learning. So what we'd like to do is to provide year-round education and enrichment opportunities for children and youth from birth through 12th grade. So there are a lot of spans of that range that will be new programming offerings. We hope to offer a variety of programs for Albany's children and teens to participate in civic life, develop healthy lifelong habits, play in our beautiful parks, and be nurtured as competent contributors to community. So the ways that we're going to start experimenting with doing that are starting our own forest preschool, 1 square smile school. So that'll kick off at Ocean View in the fall. Some new and improved teen center programs, high quality after school program, which I'll dig in a little bit what we've done so far at Friendship Club, an internship for high school students, and I hope we could roll it out this year, Albany, an outdoor education program for babies and toddlers. Shelley came up with the Albany. It's really good. I love it. It's so cute. So Friendship Club is where I've been spending 110% of my time since I started in January. And our new mission for Friendship Club is to be an afternoon oasis where kids are nurtured, respected, and responsible for helping to create community within our walls and around town. So the kids are doing things like snack committee. That was one of the first things I brought in. The kids now pick a team of friends and make the snack menu for the week. They're very ambitious chefs. They did put BLTs on the menu for Monday. We also are having miso soup next week. This week we've had cookies, and what else did we have that was interesting? There was something funny on Monday. Anyway, the rule is that if you want a sweet treat, you have to make it yourself. They all know that. So they were like, well, we want candy. I'm like, so can you make it? Which is great. You can see, like, these 3 boys wanted to make turkey sandwiches. That was just like what really excited them. And it's a long day for these kids. Some of them are out of the house by 7 and don't get picked up till 6. You know, I want their snack to be something that is comforting and satisfying and real food, right? Even if it's a cookie, at least they're making it themselves. It doesn't have like yucky preservatives or weird ingredients. And it gives them the practice of working together, doing tons of math, right? It's a very rich experience. And it also allows them to develop ownership of their space that they're spending this much time in. So Snack Committee is a symbol of exactly where we want to go with the program. Really child-led and child-driven with the adults in roles that are supportive, not just managing. Our curriculum is inquiry-based, driven by the needs, interests, and conundrums of the kids. Children spend ample time playing outdoors, taking risks. It's really important in the elementary school years, exploring and building soft skills. This model is also what we're doing in our summer camp programs this year. So if you have a chance, flip through the activity guide to see the new topics. There are things like art experiments and explorations, where we're going to go around Albany, look at all the public art that's available, and the kids will work in teams to design their own public art piece that will display at the community center. Every topic is really designed for the group of children to bring their own knowledge and interests and questions, and the adults to kind of facilitate a cumulative project at the end of the week. The learning outcomes for our programs are based on the Albany City values. We want to focus on innovation, children taking initiative, community building, and democracy. That's the beautiful thing about something so simple like Snack Committee. Everybody participates. Everybody contributes. Sometimes the kids complain, I don't like soybeans. Well, sign up for Snack Committee. Then you get the opportunity to make your voice heard. It also is this really beautiful moment of the kids serving each other. You know, sometimes we'll make something that's hot and the kids who make the snack have to go and bring it to their friends at their tables, right? It's this really sweet moment that children don't always get. And that idea of participating in community is kind of essential to the future of our society. So my goals for our staff, both for Friendship Club and just like all of these programs, is that we have a staff of educators who are trained in an aligned philosophy and approach to teaching. How do we want to teach? What do we want to teach? How do we know we're doing it right? And kind of being on the same page around those things. Even if our staff are people who this is kind of their first entry point into the workforce, bringing them in on the same page is actually almost better than having people who've spent a long time in the field and have to unlearn some things. I'm also working on making sure that all of our programs have proper coverage. I'm spending a lot of time cooking snacks with children right now, which is really fun, but it makes it hard to do all the other things I really need to do. So next year, just so you know what we're planning and hoping for, we're moving all of the Friendship Club children to the Ocean View site. One of the reasons we're doing that is so that I can really manage the team closely and kind of make sure those staffing goals are met, at least for 1 year. There's been, I think, a big disconnect kind of between best practice, contemporary best practice in terms of childcare, and what's been happening in Friendship Club. So just being able to make sure that we have a staff who are all on the same page and kind of respect the philosophy and the needs of the children is essential. And it's not possible for me to do that with 2 sites right now. So the goal is to kind of like hunker down for a year, sort of turn things around and see what happens with our enrollment. That's also part of the motivation. Our enrollment is actually not that high right now. We have a total of 65 kids. Our capacity at Ocean View is 55. So we're actually wasting a lot of resources having 2 sites, especially because of the driving. It means I have to way overstaff for the Memorial Park site, even though I actually need more bodies at Ocean View. So having 1 site will let us kind of focus on quality and then see if we can get the numbers back up to where we have demand for 2 sites. The other thing we're working on is fixing up Ocean View so it's like beautiful. We're gonna paint, it's great. I wanted to say, oh no, that's coming up. We're knocking on wood for 2, but at least 1 full-time coordinator level position to help sort of support these new programs. We want 1 full-time person who will be sort of the lead teacher for our Smile School program, and then that person will also help with the admin for Friendship Club and be on the floor. And then also, we'll see if it's possible or not. But in order to sort of really bolster our teen programs, which are kind of floundering, hoping to have some more consistency for the teen center. And I really want to dig into this idea of having a high school internship program. We have 3 staff members right now who grew up in Albany, who participated in Friendship Club or Teen Center, and it's really sweet to have them back. If we can get those kinds of youth trained up and then have them intern in Friendship Club 1 day a week, once they're 16, we can pay them to work during summer camps. If they take a year off between high school and college, or they need a part-time job, we have kind of the farm team, right? That's a thing, farm team, of people that we know who are kind of embodying the philosophy that we want children to experience and give back to their community. So it takes a little bit more manpower than just me to make a lot of new things happen. But you know, the time, we can adjust the timing. But that's a goal. So Smile School is going to start at the Ocean View site. Those trees are really special and beautiful. We also, nobody's in that building in the morning, so if they need some indoor space, we have it. But then the goal is really that they're going to go to other places around town, to the Bulb, to Albany Hill, all the different parks, and they'll meet at each location for 4 to 6 weeks. That way the kids really get the opportunity to kind of get to know a place, and then staff can see what the learning possibilities are, and they may decide we want 12 weeks at the Bulb, or 3 weeks was good, let's go somewhere new. We're also moving the teen center to Memorial Park, since we won't be having Friendship Club there. It's a lovely space. We want to use it. It's much more like teen friendly than the annex. So that space will still get used in that way. This is just what I shared with the staff, and I'll share it with you too, that, you know, time spent with children should be joyful. And I am finding that it really is. And the kids are just blossoming with joy. They're so happy to come to Friendship Club now. And they feel really safe and connected now. And I think it shows in just the energy that they bring to us. And that's very positive for not just the kids and not just their parents, but the community of just people feeling like this is a place where my children are well taken care of. And I think part of my goal also is that because our rates are very reasonable, it means that we can serve almost anyone. And that means it should be really special. There are lots of places you can go and pay more money for your kids to be all summer or in the afternoons, and I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't be able to offer a very enriching experience for kids, even though we're not charging sort of private rates. So I always encourage adults to just think of when you're with children, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Beautiful quote from Mary Oliver. That's what we want children to feel. So, yeah, the end. What questions do you have? Is that, yeah.
First of all, thank you so much.
Sure.
I really loved the presentation, and I know the Bay Area Discovery Museum from where you come, and it's phenomenal, so it's
Yeah.
great to know that you're from that ethos. But wondering about the teen.
Yeah.
You didn't really talk about that.
Yeah.
Is that in development?
No, well, the goal with the Teen Center curriculum, I didn't dig into it in the slides, but it's up on the website and in the activity guide. The goal is also with Friendship Club and camps for the teens to bring their interests to it. So we've been experimenting a little bit with having teen-driven decisions. So right now they're doing things like, they decide on Monday what kind of snacks they want to have, and then they go to the market and buy the ingredients with Christina, who's kind of leading it right now. They have a day where they go and then do some cooking. They really wanted to, it's so 2019, go around town and take selfies and have photo shoots. That was their wish of things to do, so they've been doing that once a week. And actually it's really interesting because they're sharing the site with Friendship Club right now. They love playing with the little kids. It's really cute. A bunch of the teens, they're done with their homework and they're like, we want to play. So I think the goal is to sort of develop a good core of teens from the beginning and really roll them up from Friendship Club. So they're already familiar with this idea of contributing, and then do things like, what are you guys interested in? If it's taking selfies, okay, let's dig into that a little bit. I've already talked with Jeremy Allen about partnering on some media stuff, if that's what the kids are interested in, and really let them guide it, and I think developing that, continuity for them of having a stable leader, because they do have so many hard things right at that age to figure out. Even selfies are kind of hard to figure out, to make it not just about a place to come and do homework and play video games, but really more about something challenging and interesting. So one of the ideas I have is for them to come up with some type of cumulative project that would happen at the end of the year. And so what I'm hoping is we can cultivate kids in Friendship Club, send our 5th graders to the Teen Center, bring those kids in to be interns once they're in 10th grade, and try and develop kind of a continuous path for them to participate. Does that make sense? I think it'd be really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a great presentation. My kids did Friendship Club for a few years. Are you replacing Brad? Did he step down, or did he retire or step down or something?
Retired.
He retired, yeah. I know he'd been in the system for a long time. Okay, and I remember Friendship Club is having a variety of things going on outdoors, and then indoors was kind of homework and video games. And so besides the food, which sounds fantastic, what you're doing, what are some other things? And there's, I guess, this big arc of a project you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I keep telling parents, I'm like, no, I know they need to do homework. It's hard for me because it's just so much, it's so demanding for them to be in school. And I had to beg the kids. I was like, look, you guys, the research shows that you will actually do your homework better if you play outside first. And they're like, no, we just want to get it out of the way. I'm like, just go run around for 10 minutes, please. So they do still do their homework. I am pretty much like haven't put out video games at all. It maybe happens when I'm not there, but I'm trying to like, not have video games. But they've been doing projects like, so for example, because I wanted to focus on community building, I first had the kids each draw a blueprint of their dream house. So they worked on that for maybe a week. And then I brought them in loose parts to build a model of their dream house. So just like different shapes of wood, popsicle sticks, right? Like tape, interesting kinds of little tiles. And so they built these really epic masterpieces of their dream homes. And then I asked them to each make like a little flag that represented their home. So we did that for like a week. And now they're on their third draft of what a Friendship Club unified flag would look like. So I had them do 2 drafts, and now we're working on the final draft, and then they're gonna draw that out on fabric and then work together to actually sew it up. So that's a project that's been about 6 weeks in the making. And that's a kind of long-term, it's inquiry-based, in that the children are making a lot of decisions and asking questions like, how can I make a staircase? Well, give it a try. It might not work. Try again. That's the kind of learning I want them to have the time to do. And I've found that I think having a project that's super long-term allows them to still have time to do their homework, because they can work on it a little bit every day over a week or 2, instead of what they were kind of doing before, which was like a color a thing. It was like 5 minutes, like done. Does that make sense? They play outside a lot.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds great, thank you.
Yeah.
Since it's my turn.
Yeah, just go down the line.
So you mentioned that current enrollment is about 65, and next year will be 55, is that right?
Well, so 65 individual children, so not everybody comes every day.
You shouldn't necessarily affect enrollment.
Probably not, because we have kids who come, whatever, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Right.
Yeah.
Just checking. Thanks.
Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know, because of all the shifting with the schools, I don't know how that's going to impact things for families. And I know some families prefer not to cross San Pablo if they come from that side of town, but, it's just for a year to try and kind of reinvigorate.
Sure, understood.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Really appreciated the presentation. I was curious, because I think my mom has been to a dinner at the senior center, and either people from the teen center or from some service group came and like served at the special dinner. Maybe it was a monthly birthday dinner or something where youth of some type were serving there. I didn't know if there were any intergenerational programs between Friendship Club and the senior center, or the teens and the senior center, or if there are any thoughts on that.
In fact, we're supposed to be bringing cookies over there tomorrow. And I've been talking to Robin about trying to find those partnerships. During our spring camp, it was really fun. It was a mysteries and scavenger hunts theme. And one of the clues the kids got was that they had to bring brownies to the firefighters, which was really fun. And then they had a clue that they retrieved from the firefighters. So I think that kind of learning is great and something I've done in other contexts. We just need, it can be tricky with the timing.
Yeah.
So I'm used to having kids all day. And then I'm like, oh, they're really only there for 3 hours. You got to try and pack in so many things, but tons of possibility, I think, for that, especially when we think about the teen center. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? You want to just
Any other questions or
go down
comments?
the line?
Heather, I want to thank you for your presentation, and it sounds so exciting.
It's really exciting.
As a kid in the 70s, growing up in El Cerrito, first thing we wanted to do after school was run to Albany Hill and play.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're restoring that. That's a great thing. Fire up those neurons.
Yes, exactly.
And teaching the kids how to serve. I think that's so important because we know that customer service is a lost art amongst the millennials nowadays.
No comment.
But also, the video games, they can play at home.
Right.
But I want to encourage you about the graphics department. I have a son who runs a marketing, production, media, and entertainment company in New York, and a charter school just hired him to build a graphics program department and a class. It's turned around the grade point averages, stopped a lot of dropout ratios. So I'd encourage you, but I like what you're doing. It's
Thanks.
fantastic.
Yeah, I failed to mention that I have both a master's in cinema and education, so I do feel like it's very important for children to like be makers of meaning, not just consumers, which is a big danger, I think, in our world right now. And that's part of what I was thinking about for the teens, is like, we have a TV studio. Like, we have so many resources. There's no reason why they couldn't be making a movie to put in the film festival. But to generate their own content instead of just kind of receiving it, I think is really important. And when you have 10 kids in a group like that, you can do a lot. So yes, same.
I'm really excited about Small Albany, and would love to learn more about that. I have 2 preschool age kids, and also the Smile School sounds really interesting. One question though that I had, and forgive me for not knowing when the Ocean View construction is happening, but I've heard a lot of concerns at the school board meetings of people not wanting children to be there, like around the pollution, and so I guess I'm just wondering how that might impact the children in your program.
Do you want to take
Not
that one?
impacting. Yeah. And the last report that I had was that they were leaving the 3, 4, and 5 kids there until mid-year, and moving the young kids at the beginning of the school year to the other sites.
I think there's just a lot of controversy around, like, there are concepts of like environmental justice, and would there be like particulates in the air that some of the children would breathe. And I wasn't there for the whole meeting, but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are close, but we are on the other side of it, but I totally hear what you're saying, yeah. I haven't heard anything in terms of the school district's response.
And the plan is for the park to be open and the field to be open. Like, none of the other park happenings are going to change, so I feel comfortable that we'll be able to operate there as well. Because, I mean, I don't think it'll impact us, so. And those trees are really sweet. It would be hard to give that up as I'm learning. The first time I went to that side, I was like, we need to play there. But yeah, good question. Parents are asking me that. No, don't be sorry. Yeah.
So, thank you for your presentation.
Hold it down while you're talking.
Thank you for your presentation. Everything that you said sounded great. The one thing that sort of stood out for me is your comments about looking for opportunities for high school students to interact more with the program overall, including the younger children. I think that presents a great opportunity for older students to develop leadership skills and have the positive relationships between the younger students and the older students. So that's something that sounded really great to me.
I think so too, and I've gotten a lot of calls from parents of kind of like 9th, 10th graders, like, do you take CITs? And I'm like, well, I will if they'd like to be interns in the fall. Just trying to plant those seeds. But I also think it really benefits us because that age is such a ripe opportunity to teach them about positive interactions with children. So then we have a staff of kids who've practiced that, and we can bring them in to be camp counselors, and we'll know that they've already experienced kind of some basic child development knowledge and educational philosophy. So it's like a win-win. I just need time to be able to roll it out so that I can be the one to train them up. But I've always felt like, why don't we just teach child development in high school? They should just take a 6-week class because chances are they're going to interact with children. So, it's sort of like benefits them, us, the earth, small goals. Anyway, thanks, guys. It's really fun.
so much.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Heather. We're so lucky.
I know.
I'm so lucky.
I used to say the senior center sidewalk, that project was going to be the life-changing thing for Albany, but now it's Friendship Club and the school. It's just going to make such a huge difference. Thank you, Heather, for everything you're doing. Yeah. Yeah, good. Thank you. Good night.
All right, the next section of our agenda is a series of street tree removal applications. So the first one coming up is at 721 Pomona.
Hi. 721 Pomona. This one should be pretty easy. This is a photo from, I have a series of photos over time for this. So this is 2014. Hard to see, but there's a little bit of dead branches in the top of the tree. 2015, it's looking a little bit sadder. You see some leaves dying back. 2000, I don't know what year this is, but it's getting worse. This is what the tree looks like today, or 2 weeks ago, I suppose. It's dead. It needs to be removed. There's, you can see bark starting to peel around the trunk. There was some sidewalk repair done. I'm not sure when, but could possibly be part of the leading to decline of the tree. There's some sewer water vaults pretty close to the tree. Sewer's being lifted a little bit. The sidewalk's lifted a little bit, but really the reason is that the tree's dead. So when I first sent this in, it wasn't completely dead. I came back a couple weeks later, and all the leaves were gone. So.
Do we have any clarifying questions for John about this application? Do we have any public comments about this application? Is there any discussion amongst the commission about this application or a motion?
I just quickly want to say, John, I really appreciated the detail you went into in the description of the discussion. That was very valuable. The other thing I would just say, these pictures don't show it, but there's a bunch of trees on that block, and they're big, beautiful, and full, and so it really stands out. This is a dead tree, so I'm going to, happy to move that we.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I only saw the picture in the, we didn't see these pictures. But anyway, so yeah, I appreciate the sort of over time. Just curious, do you know
That was
the reason?
a couple weeks' time.
Oh, that's, wow, okay. Just curious if there's any sort of systemic reason, if there's any like disease or something that would be a problem for other trees.
It's hard to say. I don't think it's aphids.
I think in the report you suggested maybe it was a fungus in the roots or something you can't see readily.
Usually that's the case, something like that. Some anthracnose. It could be Tophora, which is the sudden oak death fungus.
Okay.
And it's hard to say.
Okay, thanks.
So when you say that camphor trees can be susceptible to Phytophthora, is that something that you're actively looking for? Because I know it's such a pathogen that can transmit so readily and is affecting our forests.
Well, if there's canker, bleeding canker on a tree, that is a sign that's possible, but I can't really tell. We'd have to send samples to a laboratory, and it's a long, difficult, expensive process.
But it could be something in our Albany street tree master plan that we could keep our eyes out for, maybe?
We could. I'm not aware of any reported cases in Albany.
That's great. Good to
I
hear.
don't know if it's an active threat for us.
I think Todd made a
I
motion.
did make a motion, so I move that we approve the application.
I
We have a
second it.
Thank you, Brian. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes. So the next tree removal application is from 1054 Keynes Avenue.
Okay, 1054 Keynes was applied for by the property owner. It's I believe it's a weeping melaleuca. It's a sort of an unusual species of not the typical melaleuca that we see along Masonic, the broccoli tree or whatever, cauliflower tree, whatever people like to call it. I looked at the tree and it looks fine to me. The property owner was concerned that it's leaning towards the house, and it does have a slight lean, but I think it's been that way for a long time, and trees grow at a lean sometimes. The root system compensates for a lean. I don't see any signs of recent movement in the tree. That would make it a concern. The owner thinks it looks unhealthy, and it's infested with ants, and yeah, there were some ants crawling up and down the trunk, but there's ants in the environment. They're looking for food. There may be some aphids or something that they're, who knows what they're doing up and down the tree, but that really doesn't, it's not going to kill the tree to have ants on it. And the tree creates a huge amount of debris, which clogs the drains. It produces some debris, and there's some there. It's a really small leaf tree, so it's kind of a fine debris that's on the ground. I don't think it's that much of an issue, no more than any other tree, really. There's no nuts or anything like that that could cause a slipping hazard. So my recommendation for this tree was to deny the application for removal.
Thank you. Do we have any clarifying questions from the commission? Do we have any public comments on this tree removal application? Okay, discussion.
Just wondering, John, did you talk to the applicant to kind of explain?
I did. I told her my point of view, and I told her that I would recommend denying the application. I haven't heard back from her. So.
Okay.
One thing I noticed when I went down there is this is like the only tree on that block. It would really be.
That's another issue.
In fact, I was going to suggest to think about it. Next time we have some sort of street tree planning, we should have a list of blocks to target, because that one really needs some
Yeah. Well, Canes is
in general.
Really narrow planting.
It is narrow. It is. No,
difficult,
I understand
so-
that. But there's a lot of empty spaces that it cut out that
Yeah,
seems like.
yeah.
But I understand, yeah.
Can you clarify limb failure as one of the cons?
Limb failure, when a limb of a tree breaks out for whatever reason.
Was that a large limb that,
This tree there, I do have a picture right here. There's, if, I don't have a pointer, but where that middle limb is, oh, there you go. Yeah. So right in there, and below that is a scar where a limb broke out, so there's a rip down the side of the tree. But melaleucas grow really, unlike other trees, they really grow over, they heal over, they grow over each other, they grow roots inside itself, and it's not a concern really right there. But limb failure happens on trees, but one limb failure, I don't see any, I don't suspect any other limb failure to happen in any time recent or soon with this tree. That's what limb failure is. A limb comes out of a tree.
I understand, I just wanted to see if it was fairly large, and you've already clarified that you don't suspect it'll happen again, but that seems like it was fairly large then.
Yeah, I can't say when. It's
No one was hurt or anything?
not that I know of. It has to be 5, 6, maybe 10 years ago that came out, so.
And as far as the maintaining, the maintenance, pruning for the pedestrians and the cars, how would you approach that and how often?
Well, when it needs it. So, and I let the property owner know when I contacted her that that's what I think. Well, it needs is to be raised up a little bit, and I'll do that. I'll get to that. I just wanted to go through this hearing first, so.
I'd make a motion that we follow your recommendation and deny the application based on this report.
Second.
All those in favor of denying this application? Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Thank you. And the last tree removal application is 1461 Marin, and just for the note of record, Commissioner Sardinius is stepping out because it's within her radius.
Okay, 1461 Marin is a London plane tree, and I'm not sure of the cultivar. I can get to that, though. But it has a lot of deadwood in it. It first came to my attention this past winter. A big limb broke out of it. I had to go and pick up the limb and cut out some other dead stuff in it. There's more. The real concern with this are these areas of decay right there. Right here is where apparently a large limb had been removed a long time ago, and It's kind of healing. The rounded edge around that cut is the wound wood trying to heal it, but it hasn't healed, and it's really decaying in there. And if you look down the left side of that, it's decaying even further. So this is one part of the trunk with decay, and just above it, there's another more recent area where there's decay in the tree, and that is where the main stem grows out, and it grows over the street at that point. And that's what I'm really concerned about. If we leave this tree, we can prune out the dead wood and leave the little bit of leaf growth that's still in the tree, but I'm really concerned about this breaking out at this point and falling into marin. So, you know, the tree is definitely in decline. There's a little bit of, I don't know if I have a picture, I guess not. There's a little bit of epicormic sprouting along the trunk, so it kind of looks green when you're standing on the sidewalk, but if you look up, it looks pretty bad. And I think, I'm not sure what type, there's different types of London plane trees, and I'm suspecting this is a yarwood, which is susceptible to anthracnose, which doesn't necessarily kill a tree, but after years and years of having anthracnose, the tree starts to weaken and dies back. And I think this has gotten to the point where it's over the hill. We could possibly replant with the Columbia cultivar, which is an anthracnose-resistant cultivar, or a different species. But that section of marin is mostly London plane trees right now. So.
Thank you, John. Is there any are there any clarifying questions for John about this application? And is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment about this application? Okay, open for discussion amongst the commission.
I guess this probably would have qualified as a qualifying question or a clarifying question. Has there been contact with the property owner? You submitted this application, but
They contacted me about the dead limb.
Okay.
When that came down, so I got mailed the notification otherwise.
Yeah, and it's posted in front of their house, so yeah, okay.
Any other discussion? Does anyone have a motion?
I move to approve the application.
Second.
All right, everyone in favor? Aye. All right, note for the record, we had 6 ayes and 1 abstention.
Going back to the canes, people mentioned a program to encourage tree planting. I live on Adams, which is kind of the sister street in town of, Canes and Adams. And on our block, there were almost no trees. And then our next door neighbor got inspired and worked with Tony Wolcott back when he was the arborist. I don't know what the program was then, but she went up and down the block, and it was her own personal crusade to get people to agree to having trees. And I think the city paid for all of it. And a number of property owners, and there's apartment buildings on our block, said no, but a number of homeowners said yes. And I'm wondering if there's something you can briefly say about that, John, or we can have a presentation about that later, how that works.
About
encouraging residents to plant street trees, or have the city to subsidize, or
it's a good idea.
I can speak a little bit about that particular program. There was a program, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago.
10 years ago.
Urban Greenway or something. It was an organization that came in and would back that sort of thing.
Yeah, it was about 10 years ago when that happened.
One thing I will say is that as we get to the work plan, there is an item about homeowner tree education, and I might suggest that if we've proposed that potentially that could be a subcommittee project, perhaps that person could also look at, as a part of that homeowner education, about curb planting strips and opportunities or ways that you can kind of green your street. So if we can, I think it's a great suggestion, and I think it could be a future agenda item, and perhaps it could come under that same umbrella. So thank you so much, John.
As it stands right now, property owners apply, or when there's construction, if there's room for a tree, they're required to plant the tree.
It's just we don't think you have enough to do, John. We're just trying to keep you busy.
We got 90 trees in this year. That's my
pretty
best year
great.
so far, and I'm starting to stockpile for next year.
That's good. That's
already,
great.
So the next item actually also involves trees, and that is at Terrace Park. It's the discussion around a replacement tree for the tree that was removed. So I think we have a presentation on that as well.
Yeah, so this is where the old tree was removed. To the left of the center tree, there was a large camphor there that we took out. Just wanted to remind everyone what we're talking about. I found a few options. I kind of like this option, which is by the bathroom and the picnic tables.
Could I, just in reviewing the photos, could I just ask you to do the mouse on the part of the picture you actually mean? Because I was a little confused looking at these pictures to make sure I was looking at the right place.
Sure. I think generally somewhere in this area.
Okay, thank you.
And
There's a couple struggling trees there that I'm not concerned about, and they'd be to the south of another tree. So.
And as a reminder, the commission selected Coast Live Oak to replace the camphor.
And another option would be near the sandbox, near the playground area. If you were coming this way, toward the trail goes towards the bathroom, the path goes towards the bathrooms, and the picnic table's going this way. There's a red maple planted down here that replaced the live oak that was in the sand pit. I'm thinking another tree in the other corner, in the eastern corner, might be a good place to put.
Sorry, is that in the field there or no? On
Yeah.
the okay.
It's the end of the field, the
So actually in the field area.
northeast corner
Okay.
of the field.
Not in the concrete. You wouldn't be cutting away concrete.
Right. I mean, I'm asking if it's on the other side of the path
Oh,
or
right.
the field side of the field.
Yeah, the
Okay.
field, yeah. So, and another option would be by the basketball court on the southwest corner of the field. We could actually put 2 trees here. This is the same, this is looking north and this is looking east from that area. I think we could get 2 trees in there if we wanted to, but we're replacing the one camphor. But I'd be happy to plant 2 trees. I'd be happy to plant a tree in every one of these locations if we wanted to do that. Let's go back. I know we decided on Coast Live Oak, or the commission decided on Coast Live Oak. What I didn't consider then is that this field is irrigated pretty regularly, and Coast Live Oak wouldn't do well in a regularly irrigated area, especially in the field area. It would probably be okay here. I'm not sure what the irrigation system's here, but I know the field gets it's usually pretty damp, pretty moist most of the time. So either we go with this area for a live oak, and/or we plant something different, like another maple, a red maple, something that likes some moisture in one of the field locations.
I think I remember from, I don't want to interrupt. Is this an appropriate time to? I think I remember that part of the live oak, or Coast Live Oak, was that it was a California native tree, and there was interest in that. And I think I liked the red maple, and I think that was not a California native tree, if I'm not misremembering the discussion. But I don't know all my trees. So I just know I liked the ones with the colorful leaves, and I think that the red maple was one of those ones.
Sure, yeah.
So I wasn't the person that was sort of leaning necessarily towards a native, but I know there was sort of consensus in this group that would be great if possible. So I don't know if there are any other natives that you think would do well in these conditions, but I'm just curious about
If I remember the conversation, I think it was also the greenhouse gas. It was just a really great carbon sequestration and a big tree potential. So
Yeah, the Coast Live Oak is a great tree. It's a great habitat tree. It's just that I think it would suffer here. It would get root fungus, and they don't like continuous moisture. They like to dry out in the summer. There's a native oak. There's a native maple, big leaf maple tree that might be good, and it grows to be could grow to be a pretty large tree. In an area like this, it might well do that.
Well, sorry, do you also mind, maybe we can talk about location first, because it seems like it's dependent on location. So if we kind of came around to that, then we could figure out what tree might be appropriate. I was curious about, for me, so this is just I actually have had like several of my kids' birthday parties there, and there's this, oh, do we have comments?
Well, I think if they're clarifying questions, we should do that, but are there any
Okay.
comments about the Terrace Park tree? No.
I do, well, I have another question. Okay.
Yeah. You get to choose, or I can choose.
So, sorry that we weren't clear with the, I didn't call out the address when I said the public comment during that section, so that's my bad, and I apologize. But there's always a replacement, there will be a replacement tree, and I think if, would it be good to connect offline then, or what's?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Thank you so much for coming to the meeting, sorry. So then I think at this point it would be appropriate, Julia, if you want to go ahead with your.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have kind of a question
Yeah,
about.
is it questions time? How are we doing this?
And we can go down the line too.
So I have another question. If you could go to where the picnic tables are, I think you had recommended a medium-sized tree. Just wondering why medium-sized and not large?
Well, because there's two other trees there, and there's a tree to the right. But looking at it again, like I said, there's I'm not sure what it is. I think a fir tree there, and there's a little magnolia-type tree there that by the time the oak tree is large enough, maybe they're gone, or they're struggling as it is. So I would favor an oak tree over what's there now, because they're struggling. There were a couple other trees that died right in that area.
And the oak would be the bigger one, potential.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Mhm.
Brian, do you have any questions?
I see what looks like plates in the ground. Is there some kind of plumbing system that might not be conducive to big trees?
There is. There's the irrigation system is in that area, but I think we can. There's still room to put a tree in with the irrigation there.
Todd?
Well, just looking at that, I wished I'd looked, because when I looked at that spot, I wasn't thinking big tree. I was thinking medium-sized tree, because you suggested. So I don't know how close a building is on the other side. I think that's the backyard, though. It's probably not something right there, but I don't want to be affecting a foundation if we put a large tree there.
The
that's-
bathroom or the neighbor?
Well, the neighbor. I'm thinking of the neighbor.
The building I think the building in the
backyard,
picture
right?
is the second building over.
Yeah.
So the immediate neighbor is to the north.
I'm not necessarily expecting to get an answer right now. I'm just saying that would be something I'd look at. I wouldn't want it with a foundation, 5 feet from where the tree's going to go in.
If we were somewhere like here,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. No, I like that
should be
location.
okay.
Yeah. And I would be happy to, well, yeah, I like that location. Yeah.
I like, sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I was just going to say, I like that location because it's really hot in that park. And I know that everybody crowds around that one middle, like with the picnic table that you can't reserve between the two playgrounds because there's no shade there. And so I think as just a park user, it's funny, even in Albany with temperate weather, it gets so hot. So I would say the more shade that we can create for those picnic tables, the better possible.
And for me, this park is all the way across town. I rarely go there, but I have been there some. And I'm reluctant to put trees in this open field. Seems like we have few truly open spaces like that. So that would also help me tip it towards this site.
Yeah, and I would agree. I was at Terrace Park this past weekend, and I think this is a great spot for a tree, though I agree that probably not an oak tree, but some other tall tree with a big canopy, because there are a lot of picnic tables, and people do just migrate towards the shade. I think the other area at the top of the ramp that you showed is an area where children kind of run back and forth a lot, and so I think it would and how a lot of people access the field if they're not coming from the other direction. So I think putting a tree there would kind of make people start going around and might not be the most ideal spot. Although it could make people congregate there more, but I think that it kind of gets used as a throughfare. And then the final spot by the basketball court, I think would be a good spot for a tree, although like the other side of it, where there's like the water fountain and the bench gets pretty shady sometimes. It's like the only part of the park that maybe gets shady. So, but I do think a tree might be really nice right there as well. So I like the idea of 2 trees. Right, that's all.
Reese, do you have any? No. Okay, Ben?
So for option 3, if there were 2 trees, have you put any thought into what combination of species might be most appropriate? Would it be like one large and one smaller tree, or how would that work?
Well, actually, I was thinking 2 of the same trees.
2 of the same
Yeah.
trees.
It could be 2 different trees.
Okay, so that was one question. Another question is with option number 1, you suggested that maybe a live oak could be okay there.
I think so. I think it's drier there. I don't think it gets the irrigation that the rest of the field gets.
Do you know if the irrigation is something that could be adjusted for that location to accommodate a tree there?
For which location?
Option number 1, to reduce the amount of irrigation there.
I don't think it gets irrigated.
Oh.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into it, but I think that may be part of the reason the other trees have been struggling there. There's no water.
Liam can correct me if I'm wrong, because he works in our department, but this is very green because it rained for, I don't know, 10 months or something. But I believe that it's usually like a dirt in that area and not something that we're watering like in terms of a grass.
My only comment is, I understand it's a much bigger park, but I'm very frequently by Cedar Rose Park in Berkeley, and right along the Greenway, there are a couple spots where there are some nice big trees right by the path on the edge of the field. And although it is a much bigger field, I do feel like it doesn't obscure people's ability to access the field. And what I notice is like mommy and me groups tend to congregate under those trees in the like mid-morning time in little groups, or I see people picnicking or people enjoying the field in a different way. So my only thinking about that section that was kind of by the ramp, I actually like all 3 locations, and I think it might be nice. We've taken out a lot of trees. It might be nice to try to put in more than one here. But I actually feel like having one additional large tree in this section could be a nice additional shade opportunity and also provide sort of a little congregating space for people in that section of the park if we found one that would thrive. So
The cedar rose trees are redwoods, I believe you're talking about.
that's right. So they're especially nice and also enormous. But, you know, we're Albany and we're
Redwood
starting
might
where
do
we are.
well there with the irrigation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion, or are we at a point where people have any thoughts about the location, which is what I think we're
I
looking
have
at first?
another question. Is it an option to select more than one location and have 2 or more trees planted as part of this?
Look at his
We
eyes
can do
light
whatever we
up.
want.
It's okay by me. We could have a live oak, a redwood, and a big leaf maple, have a collection of native trees in the park if we want.
Was the big leaf maple does that get to be a pretty good canopy size?
It can.
Okay, because I agree with that. I think a lot of people would value having shade and being able to use that grassy area to sit under. So if that's something that can, but you want the shade, right? Like that's part of it. So just as long as it's a tree that can provide the shade.
Do big leaf maples, I mean, I've only ever seen them in riparian areas, and I guess you're suggesting it because this is a really wet irrigated area, but I've just never really seen them in the landscape context outside of like botanic gardens and riparian areas.
I have one in front of my house.
Oh, well, you should come by. Okay.
It's only about 15 feet tall after 15 years or so, but it struggled for a while and it's finally starting to grow. But supposedly they can reach 70 feet tall also. You know, I don't know if,
I guess that's one other comment. Do think that it'd be nice if we're gonna put something there for shade, for it to be kind of fast growing if possible. So to the extent that it can be a fast growing tree, otherwise it's gonna just kind of stick out.
well, a redwood could be pretty fast growing, live oak can be fast growing. The big leaf maple, I'm not sure, again, where it was planted in front of my house, it's compacted soil, and it was about a foot tall for 5 years or so, and then finally it started growing, so it hit a sweet spot. Started growing, so I don't know, with the irrigation, it could be fairly quick growing tree.
One challenge for shade at this particular location would be it's at the northern end of the field, and so the shade, it seems like, would be mostly over the path, unless it has a broad canopy, maybe.
There also. Yeah.
Must be that tall.
Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, one concern I have about option 2 is that when I've been at this park, when there are parties or other large crowds, that area seems to be a spot where a lot of field activities are focused, whether it's baseball or soccer or frisbee. And I'm a little concerned that a tree in that location might interfere with those activities, or that it might be damaged because there's just a lot of activity in that
Yeah.
particular place. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
It's a big field. There's still a lot of field. This is just the edge of the field. And again, like I said, if you keep going to the lower right-hand corner of the screen, there's a maple tree there. It's a little bit obscured because it's this weird little neck kind of section of the field that sticks out where the tree's planted. But I mean, we'd stake it if we needed to. We could put a wire cage around the tree to protect it. Something I've been thinking about on San Pablo, because we had a few trees snap that were planted in the last couple of years and just replanted again. So I'm trying to find a good protective cage or.
Yeah, I saw kids at the birthday party on Sunday last weekend, like just punching the maple tree. And I was trying really hard not to be like, don't do that. But I agree. I think it could be a challenging location. I definitely know that I chase my kids like in that straight line there just all the time. So if there was another spot along the curve, maybe more towards where the tree was removed, maybe not along the property line, but I could definitely see a tree like towards the far edge of more towards that part of the field.
So towards the camphor on the left somewhat, because the property owner didn't want a tree blocking his view.
Now it's further away. And redwoods
He's
don't.
in the smallish beige, pinkish beige house.
But redwoods don't. I mean, once they get big, they don't have a lot of limbs on the bottom.
Sure. Well, that's an option too. Just push it over a little bit so it's not right in that pathway coming out of the playground there.
I'm going to suggest as a note of process, if this works for people, that we actually isolate each of these 3 locations and have a conversation about each of them and a vote, because I think that way people can weigh in where they want to. So the first motion would be that we look at that picnic area, the option number 1, and vote about whether or not that is a location. So I'm going to move that we approve a tree plant location at option 1 with an appropriate tree, and it sounds like potentially a coast live oak would be an appropriate tree there. So that's my motion.
Second.
Everyone in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So option 1, we've approved for a tree, potentially the coast live oak that we approved the last time. So now we're going to move on to thinking about option 2. And is there anyone that wants to make a motion about option 2?
I have a quick question. So I'm looking at, I have a picture of a little different angle, and you're right, there is a tree just outside of this view. How large will that tree become?
That'll be eventually a 60-foot or so maple tree.
Yeah. So that. Oh, maybe that must be an old picture. Yeah, that must be. Yeah, this is today. So it's a new tree. Yeah.
It's 2 years, I think it's. been.
Right. So anyway, that's going to provide all the shade in that area. I don't know if you see that. So
Well,
I
again,
actually,
that's
it's a little low. It is a little further.
north end, and it's going to shade, early shade over towards the picnic tables and later shade towards the sand pit.
Right.
And maybe a little towards the playground, probably not too much,
Right.
so.
And then I'm looking at Google Street View, and there's no, it shows no trees in the field at all, except the one you're talking about is brand new. It's like in one little nook.
Yeah.
And then there's like one established tree that stands out just right along the path, closer towards the basketball court. And then there's nothing else. So I think that still would be a big consideration for us to say we're going to start putting trees in the field or more trees along the edge of the field. I think that's something I would not be in favor of, but maybe other people have stronger opinions.
The more I look at this, the more I think that where it came from is the best location, where the one was that we removed. But I understand, we want to respect the property owner. Sorry to do
In keeping with open spaces, I mean, John, wasn't your recommendation that if you do put something in option 2, that there would have to be some type of barrier or barricade to give it the time to grow and not be damaged because it is an open play field?
Yeah. So, it can be done.
We're not trying to take that away, as he brought up, that open play field by planting more trees in that area, are we?
Well, for my opinion, there's still plenty of field there. There's a lot of open field there. The tree on the left is the tree in the center here. So if we were to push it over a little bit towards that tree, have a redwood or something, it would basically be shading this area at some point. So that would be a little shady spot. And it wouldn't be directly coming out of the playground.
I think it sounds like there's not a strong consensus about option 2, but I'm not sure, Ben, if you wanted to make a comment or ask a question.
Yeah, I'm feeling very ambivalent on this, and I could go either way. On one hand, the more trees, the better. The more shade, the better, generally speaking. On the other hand, just my experience is that that's such a high activity area. I'm concerned it's just not an appropriate location for a tree. So I could go either way, really.
So I don't think it sounds like there's anyone with a burning passion to move on option 2. So perhaps we should advance to option 3 and see if we have a motion for the basketball area where either 1 or 2 trees can be planted based on the recommendation.
I really like the idea over the long term of a big tree being there, or 2 big trees being there. So I would be supportive of both option 1 location and option 3 location for new trees.
Is that,
So I move that we approve 2 trees in this basketball location.
do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, we have 2 opposed, and it looks like it passes with the folks that have.
Maybe we should have had some discussion on that.
Sorry, did we skip that? So we actually,
Totally skipped
can I go back? Can we go back? What happens now? Rewind, everyone watching at home, that did not happen.
So when I went and looked at the field today, and I remembered that this is a nice little size field. So the big kids are playing on the big field, and then you have this nice little side field where the small kids can have something going on. I would really hate to let that go. Put trees there, which trees are important, but so is open space. And there are very few, I mean, Albany doesn't have a whole lot of open space, field space.
Sorry, but where are we talking about
So-
exactly? Because I wouldn't
Here's
imagine.
the tennis courts are right there.
Where that little tree is, right?
So it's like a panhandle on the park. So the park is like this, and it's this little cutout here, as far as it'll go.
John, can you point where you envisioned the trees
Yeah,
going?
that's what I want to know.
Well,
So is this little
probably somewhere,
L shape, right?
this is the southwest corner of the field, and over on this side is the tennis courts. So there's a path that comes around through here.
So immediately west of the basketball courts you were envisioning.
Yes.
I think, in my experience, this is the least utilized area of the entire park. is right on the other side of the basketball courts where you're suggesting.
I think it's a good location for a tree.
Yeah, I agree.
Fair enough.
Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Martin?
Well, I would, in some sense, I would defer, I mean, it's too bad we don't have any residents near the park, but it sounds like we have some people here who'd use the park a fair amount who could speak to how that space is used currently. I mean, a plus of having trees there is if it does provide shade for kind of like you were saying, of like for parents to hang out while the kids are doing stuff, then and if people aren't really playing there or doing much there right now, they're not throwing their frisbees there and running into that area much right now, or kicking their balls over there and running around, you know, then that would be better than if people are using that space a lot.
I will say there's quite a slope there. It's at most, you can't see it, but it's mostly at an angle coming down in that picture.
So we actually have someone in the public that wanted to make a comment, and I feel that because I made an error in the order of things, I would like to invite you to come up and make a public comment if you'd like to during this part of the discussion. And if you can state your name when you step up to the podium, that would be great.
I'm Marge Brostrom. I live 1116 Curtis Street. Lived there pretty much, a very long time. And I've grown up very close to this Terrace Park. And I know that when you're talking about trees by the basketball court, that place is not really utilized. I mean, you play on the basketball court, you really don't, run around on that grassy area. A lot of people do dog walking, but it's more in the field, not by the basketball court. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. I want to double check that we've had an opportunity to hear everybody's comments and discussion and questions.
I guess so.
I just think some shading by the basketball court would be great for people to enjoy watching a game. Maybe the kids will play more basketball, get more active, and sometimes when you come off the court, you want to have some shade and relax.
You know, folks, you don't need to convince me. It's fine. I'm just one vote. I don't have to, it doesn't have to be unanimous, folks. It doesn't have to be unanimous. It's fine.
So I'm going to ask us to revote just because we've had some enriching discussion and also some public comment. So if we could ask for the motion one more time.
Just repeat it.
I move that we approve planting 2 trees by the basketball court.
Second.
Did you decide are those 2 big trees or 2 big trees?
I think it was 2 big trees.
2 big appropriate species trees. Appropriate trees.
And do we have a second?
Did we already say second? I think we already said second.
Okay. Everyone in favor of approving this motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have 2 opposed, and it does pass. So thank you so much, everybody. And thank you to Robert for your rules of order. All right, so the next item on our agenda,
2 trees of the appropriate species.
that will work in the watering of the fields.
That are big.
2 of the same
Do we
species.
want John to bring them back for us to approve, or do we?
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be great if you could do some research about what would be the appropriate trees.
Just redwood.
But on the wet field? On the wet field?
2 redwood trees.
Oh,
Okay, great. Sounds good.
Hold on. Aren't redwoods pretty bad, hard on grass? Don't the needles pretty bad on grass?
On what?
Don't fallen needles of
On grass. Well,
harm grass.
in this Google picture, I'm not sure what month, but you can see that it gets kind of dry there.
And it's good that needles never go anywhere.
I
but
think that's
into
old,
the
though.
tree.
We fixed the drainage on that field a
Yeah.
few years ago, yeah.
Usually there's a date here, a month and date, but I don't see it. So, yeah, I mean, it could get rough, but I forget her name was talking about the Ocean View Park, the trees there. She was talking about the Redwood Grove, where she likes to bring the kids to play and.
Sure, but we have a very actively used field with grass, and I don't want to harm that grass because we've put in a couple trees that the needles bleed over and
Well,
start.
it would, whatever tree we have, it's going to shade, eventually it's going to shade its area, so it's going to kind of push the grass back a little bit.
Have you been to Willard Park?
Sure.
Okay, so there's a big redwood there, kind of in the middle of the field, and it tends to be a spot where people congregate, and the leaves tend to not, I mean, with redwoods, since it's such a vertical tree, it'll shade, but it tends not to have like as wide of a canopy, so that's something that we could consider. And it does tend to leave like a ring of bare ground kind of immediately around the base, so it's like 1 to 2 feet. But given the slope and kind of the aspect and where the trees would be placed, I don't think that a lot of those leaves would end up in the bigger open space.
Right, they'll
of the
probably go
field.
down towards the path, you're right. Yeah.
Or the other option, I think, would be, if we want to go native, would be the big leaf maple.
I want to just get a read from the commission if people would like to see these two options come back, or if we feel comfortable to sort of make a recommendation or a decision here about the tree type.
I think it would be nice just to get a quick back to us if once you've done a little research to make sure.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Great. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the 2019-2021 work plan. And I want to commend Shelley for all the work that she's done to sort of incorporate the feedback from the city council. And this is the fully amended plan with basically their recommendations or requests of changing priority orders of things or incorporating additional items, and also includes some suggestions of work plan items that either are going to be driven by the schedule of public works, which are indicated in color on here, I believe in yellow, and then also things that the council specifically asked for, which are indicated in green, and then some planning that we did to try to figure out what we could kind of knock out between now and the recess over the late summer, so that we could kind of make some movement on some of these work plan items sort of at the outset. And along with that, I just want to say one other note, which is that there were a couple of very discrete projects which seemed to lend themselves to a subcommittee, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a subcommittee of multiple people. It could be one person sort of taking on a project, doing a little research, and then coming back to the commission with that information, which might be an efficient way to kind of get the ball rolling on some of these smaller projects. So that's what you're looking at here. And I wanted to give Shelley an opportunity to also say any other comments you want to say about that.
What I want to say is that your chair did a wonderful job at council. They were very impressed and complimentary of how she presented it, and you were fabulous. They complimented the commission on the work that you guys did in prioritizing things, and I think that was made it like the example for the ones that came after. So great job to you guys on working through that kind of crazy poster board thing. There were very few additions. They didn't take anything off of it, and they felt we were really ambitious, but had a really good amount of things. An interesting part is that we went through our process, and we finished it, and then the council, after us, finished their strategic plan. And so when you read this, you see some things they're all kind of the same thing. We could clump them together. So at some point, I think we could present this again in a way that says, okay, here's all the items about Pierce Street Park, and a lot of them overlap. So, but otherwise, they were really happy with the work plan you presented. I will just note the two comments that we put in green was councilperson requested to cement table tennis in Ocean View Park, so that is getting added to that. And then they moved the Greenway bathroom suggestion from a priority 2 to the priority 1. There was an emphasis that support for the city master tree plan, but that was basically the only comments.
So I wanted to start by opening this up for any clarifying questions before we seek public comment. I'm just going to go down the line. Julia, do you have any?
Yeah, I just wondered about the subcommittees, like how those were determined to be the subcommittees, because they don't necessarily line up with the priorities, I noticed.
It had more to do with us talking through projects that might have, and you can feel free to weigh in too, projects that might be stymied because they have to get in a long workflow of other parts, other departments, versus ones that were fairly straightforward and discrete and could perhaps be handled in a kind of, information gathering, then bring it back for discussion. So that's sort of how we came up with those particular subcommittee items. One comment that the city council did make is because we did have a few things carry over from the last work plan, they said you have a great ambitious work plan, but just being mindful of, how to get it all done in this time. So this was one suggestion about how we could kind of make some quick progress on things in an efficient way.
Okay, thanks. And then also, just curious what the urban forester, what the tree removal education campaign is? I wasn't familiar
That
with
came up as a part of the sort of the process that we did around the work plan items, because we've had those people not knowing that they couldn't just cut their own tree down or have it pruned by somebody. So how can we create something that's externally facing for homeowners that tells them this is how, what tree management looks like in Albany as a homeowner, this is your rights and this is your responsibilities. And so there was some thought that would be a nice addition to what we're doing and could maybe live on the website or be something like that.
Yeah, I think that's great. The only thing I would suggest is maybe the rewording it to be street tree education campaign, because then it just sounds like you're helping them figure out how to remove their tree. I just was a little bit confused by that, so.
That's great.
Okay.
I don't know what the process is for amending the actual things, but I do agree.
We don't have
that
to,
we meant
yeah.
street tree, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily have to amend it. I just want to maybe as we refer to it in future agendas as something different.
Perfect.
Okay.
Brian, do you have any questions or?
Yeah, I had a question about how the two items were connected. One is review prioritized list of projects on Albany Hill to include in the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan program. How is that different from the review Albany Hill access and trail projects, including bridge and interpretive signage, which we've been talking about for the last year?
That's exactly one of those scenarios where the council finished their strategic plan after we finished ours. And so we had to include the council's wording in ours, and then we still had ours. But they are, in essence, the same thing. Yeah.
And the reason the subcommittee suggested there is that particularly around the interpretive signage, that was something that someone might be able to, if they had a special interest in that topic, for example. They might want to make some suggestions or do some initial research and bring that back to the commission as a way to sort of move that forward a little more efficiently. Todd?
I didn't really have any comments.
Thank you for presenting this to council.
Reese?
Did you mention, I'm sorry, it went right by me, I was somewhere else, about the pickleball being approved, those courts being converted?
No.
No,
So,
not
yeah, they got really excited and sent out an email and posted things that I think they thought in their minds that
Jumped the gun.
there was a victory because it made it on the work plan. And I responded to the lead person this morning and said, it's not actually approved, but it is on the work plan, and we are going to be doing the work to consider that and hopefully have it come in July. So I tried to clarify with her. I think they're pretty excited about trying to do some fundraising to help with that project, but yes.
Yes, unbeknownst to me, it is really big.
Pickleball? Yeah.
People are very serious about it.
They are very serious, yes. We have a really big group in Albany that plays pickleball, and it's wonderful, yeah.
Ben?
Yeah, that was one of my questions. It says convert Ocean View Park tennis courts to pickleball. So one could infer that the decision has been made, but my understanding is that we're going to consider it.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there another way to phrase that might make it more clear?
Possibility.
Yeah.
Study the conversion.
Yeah, study, and then maybe in future.
That's exactly what you're going to get, is just like any other project, you'll get, here's the proposal for that, here's how much it will cost, here's what we'd have to do, and, it'll come in a staff report, but it hasn't been decided. That's correct.
I mean, it's possible when the tennis players hear about this, they're going to come and say, no, we need this.
Yes, that's right.
So,
Exactly.
So we need to, there's no predetermined outcome for what the decision
Correct.
will be on this.
They've got larger rackets, so.
Yeah.
And
It
the other
simply
question-
gets airtime and your consideration in terms of your agenda items, yes.
And so what is this cement table tennis to Ocean View Park? And is that something that has been decided as well?
Yes, a council person would like to see that as a new amenity in Ocean View. When the presentation was about new bocce courts going in, the possibility that pickleball might be going in, she felt like Ocean View was a park that had these kind of emerging sports, and that would be a good addition. And so it was added to our work plan at the council meeting.
But to study the possibility again, or to definitely add one?
I took it as direction, yes. Is that how?
It seemed,
Yes.
yes.
Is it, I mean, so it's specifically at Ocean View? Because I
Yes.
could see that potentially being the case at a different park too, but it was just, okay.
It was Ocean View, I think, because of all the other projects that are going on.
Sure.
And I asked our architect, who's going to come back with bocce, to give us some possible locations for that.
It was, I saw the video, and it was a great presentation you gave, thank you. And it was Vice Mayor McQuaid, who she had seen one somewhere else, I forget where, and she thought it was really good. And
Yeah, they're great, and we do have a whole friendship club out there that would probably love having that as an amenity to play with as well.
I will just say as a note of comment, I have seen them in a lot of urban parks, sort of in, places where people are doing park activation, sort of trying to attract different demographics to the park, I think, so.
Interesting. I mean, not that it's necessarily a bad idea. It just seems a little bit odd that an individual council member can sort of direct a specific amenity be added to a park in that manner.
It was,
That
the
is-
whole thing was approved. It's not like it was just her and it happens. The whole thing was approved. It was discussed and approved.
All right.
Yeah, everybody approved it, so.
So I would suggest at this point that we see if there's any public comment about the work plan before we have further discussion. Looks like we do not have public comment on the 2019 to 2021 work plan. So I don't think we have to approve anything because this has kind of already been approved by council. This is sort of a note of information. I would like to talk a little bit about the subcommittees, if we could for a moment, just to see if there is interest or people that would be willing to take on this discrete project. And I will also say in acknowledgement that some folks have been very involved in the dog survey, the dog park survey, and the dog park work that's been taking on over the last several months. So I want to commend and thank those commissioners who have been hard at work on that, and suggest that I would be one example of a person that was not involved in that and would be happy to look at one of these subcommittee issues, and I don't know if there are others that would be as well. But if we could just look quickly at the ones that are suggested for that. We don't have to do all of them tonight, but I just thought it would be good to go through them and see if there are people that have a particular interest in a couple of the ones that we identified. So the first one I'm seeing here is the Review Albany Hill Access and Trail Projects, which is really particularly looking at the interpretive signage on Albany Hill and making some suggestions about content there, and then there would be a design person that would be kind of helping do that. But I know that is a particular area of interest. Oh, wonderful. So if that's okay for everyone, Hillary's offered to take that on as a project, and we so appreciate your service. Thank you. The next one on the list is investigating.
I have a question about subcommittees. Is it one, often with subcommittees, it works, it's advantageous to have more than one person.
So we definitely can have more than one person, but subcommittees can be one up to three people, So for something like the dog park, there was a whole lot of work, a lot of complexity, and over many, many months, that group was meeting and interacting with the public, so we did have 3 people on that subcommittee. I'm happy to suggest we have more people on these subcommittees. I think what we were talking about in our sort of conversation as we were thinking about the work plan is that some of these things, like for instance, I had been looking at the topic on memorials, and I was like, really, this is about gathering information about what's currently being done, and then gathering information about what other communities are doing, and sort of bringing that information to this body so that this body can have that information to make decisions and have discussion. So I was thinking that might work as a sort of single-person subcommittee project, because then at that point, it becomes an issue for the whole commission to look at. We could also have 3 people do all of these projects and maybe just not be able to do them all at one time. So I'm just thinking about people's bandwidth in terms of that, but I'm very open to doing it whatever way would work best for people. So do you have other comments on that?
I guess it depends on the purpose and the function of the subcommittee. I think if If the subcommittees behave similar to how the dog subcommittee has behaved, I think it needs more than one person. If you're preparing, if the subcommittee is preparing draft products or making decisions about sort of the direction in which certain things should head, it should be more than one person. If it's simply conducting some research, gathering some background information to share with the full commission to consider, then I think one person is appropriate. So I guess it really depends on the nature and the purpose of the subcommittees.
As I was envisioning it, I was envisioning the latter. So I wasn't suggesting on this, we were not suggesting on this something, for example, like the master tree plan, that would have a multi-person subcommittee for sure when we get to that point. This was more things where it would be gathering some initial information and doing a little bit of legwork so that we can be all prepared to have informed discussion and kind of be a little bit further along in terms of having done some of that legwork. But if people aren't comfortable, we can also definitely go with a more, a small group approach to each of these projects. And
I'm totally comfortable if it's just one person because it's a fact-finding mission and it's strictly intel to be presented. So someone who's willing to go out there and do the work and present some of the facts, then we can all make a decision. So I'm comfortable if it's just one.
And if they want help, they can ask for it. Maybe somebody else can step up and join the subcommittee. I mean,
But if someone's interested in doing,
somebody's interested in
yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, if someone's interested in doing, they can join the subcommittee.
Yeah, you can have three.
No one's going to vote you out of the subcommittee. If you want to do it, you can do
Please
it.
join the
Party planning
subcommittees,
committee.
please,
I
please.
think there should be the option if you want it.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
So just the option for more than one person to join. The other thing we can do is like revisit. So first phase is fact finding. We bring it back to the commission. And at that point, if we do need to do some more digging, like public surveys or whatever, then we invite others because we'll need that capacity. So.
I think that's a great idea. And I also would say that, I just think that's a good idea because I think if we use different terminology, I would have thought of it as like the project lead. And this person's going to go get some information and then come back to the group and be prepared to share what they've learned so that we can all then start from that point to have a conversation, ask questions, and then identify what the next steps in the project would be. And maybe at that point, we would add people if that's appropriate. Does that feel comfortable, though, to everyone? If we take that, if we go project by project right now and see if there are multiple people or single individuals that would be interested?
I think it's good to rattle off what all of the ones are again, just so people don't just jump on the first thing they hear and the second thing they hear.
Okay, so we have the interpretive signage. We have one on review existing public, private memorials, honors, and other installations on public land and plan and implement relocations and improvements as appropriate. This subcommittee would be looking at where do we currently have memorials and also perhaps doing a little bit of digging of what do other communities do around giving a bench, giving a tree, putting a sort of, just to kind of gather that information so that we're more informed as we start a discussion about that. So that'd be another one. The third one would be connecting with members of the community garden to talk to them about relocation. So there's a real interest in relocating the community garden, but we're not sure what locations they have in mind or what their needs are. So somebody would basically do some fact-finding with that group in terms of understanding their needs and concerns in their current location. And then the next one would be looking at the tree removal education street tree removal education program campaign for homeowners. So what kind of information should go into that? It may be a nice dovetail to folks that already served on the street tree committee, but it could be a different group. And then I think, am I missing one?
Those were the main ones, unless other people had suggestions, yeah.
I think you skipped the interpretive signage one.
And the interpretive signage.
Yeah, the dog park is already.
There's already one.
There's only 6 mentions of a committee, and so you did 5, and that's the 6th.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Question, does the 500-foot radius come into play when it pertains to being on a subcommittee?
I think it's just in the voting part and discussion, yeah. I can double check that, but I believe that's what it is.
Just another subcommittee question, or additional, it's a city tree. There's some mention of the city tree plan. Just wondering if there needs to be, you don't see there needing to be a subcommittee around that?
I think that's a big project, so that would not be one of these ones that we had proposed as a small,
I see.
fact-finding. I think that's one that we'll probably need to have 3 people and work over a longer period of time.
Well, it actually, I met with Mark H. on the Public Works projects, and this is a big thing, and what he feels is they would actually have to hire an outside consultant to do the work.
Okay.
Yeah, and that it would, as we talked before, that obviously that plan would come through us and have an input, but it would also go to sustainability or to community development and planning and zoning. So it's kind of like one of those big general plan things, but
Sure.
I felt like it was out of the capacity of city staff to handle that. But if there was a section like we ended up working on, or part of it, that would definitely be something we want to get a committee together.
Great.
And the other thing I would say about these initial ones that we've sort of proposed with the subcommittees is that we were hoping they could be ones where we did some fact-finding between now and the August recess, so that in the next few months, people could gather whatever information, and there could be a little bit of progress made in these. And some of these other larger projects will have to wait until either Public Works, it fits in their queue, or their other determining factors. Is that helpful clarification?
And just remember, subcommittees don't make decisions for the commission. They just are doing the work and bringing it back, just like the trees and the dog subcommittees have done, so.
I'm wondering if anyone on the commission is actually a gardener. I'm not a real gardener, and I feel like it would behoove us to have somebody that understands about gardening, interacting with the community garden folks. You're the only one. You've already taken on the interpretive signage.
You would be great for it, but there are situations that they have shade, if you didn't know, and those trees just keep getting bigger. And so it's taken over mostly half of the garden.
Yeah, but I think like it sounds really similar to what the dog subcommittee is doing, is trying to get community input and then find an appropriate location that meets the community's needs and also the specific group's needs. So I don't think you necessarily need gardening background to be able to help fact find on this.
Good point. Is there anyone that is particularly interested in working with the community garden folks around this topic? I'm going to go on to the next one, and we can circle back to that one. The memorials, the sort of project on memorials and honor, I'm trying to find the actual language. The one about memorials and monuments and honors and other installations on public land. Is there anyone that's particularly interested in gathering some information and doing some initial fact-finding on that?
I am. I'm interested, but I'll wait to hear back from Shelley about the question I just asked her about the radius.
Okay.
And
Okay, great.
And I'm also interested.
Okay, great. So it looks like we might have to.
And I am too. I think that there are probably a lot of people very interested in this topic. I think that I don't need to be on the subcommittee understanding that information is going to come to us at an early stage.
So it looks like Brian and Varice maybe would potentially be the subcommittee for that, and we're waiting to hear if there's a radius issue, or we don't think there is one.
And Ben can join the fun. Nothing should hold you back.
I don't know. Sometimes it's not helpful to have too many cooks in the kitchen, so I'll abstain for now.
Many hands make light work.
Have a shared Google Doc and everybody's adding stuff to it. Yeah.
Are we allowed to have a shared Google Doc with the Brown Act? Subcommittees can, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Themselves, not the.
Perfect, okay. And then I think that just leaves the community garden. And if no one else is interested in that one, I will volunteer myself.
No, the
There's
tree,
also
too.
the tree.
Oh, the homeowner tree, sorry. Yes, I knew I was missing one. Let's go to that one next.
Or interpretive signage, if anybody.
Well, she's already stepped forward for interpretive signage.
If anybody else wanted to.
Would anyone like to join the interpretive signage subcommittee as well?
Oh, after all that.
Okay, so then the street tree removal homeowner education information gatherings.
I'd be
Okay,
interested.
Julia, great, thank you so
I had to say, I'd like to do this after our whole dog park thing, because that's a big lift, but I'll get to it after that.
Perfect. Then I will toss my name in the hat, and I welcome others to join me on the community gardening initiative.
So I don't want to take on too much, but I'd probably be interested in the community garden too, just because I've had community garden plots before, and I've been thinking about this issue for a while, so.
You're already more qualified than I am based on that short introduction. Would you like to take this on your own? Or okay, so we'll work together on that. And I just want to thank everybody. I know everyone's shouldering a lift in various ways, and I think this is going to be a good way for us to efficiently sort of begin to get some work done and attack this large work plan.
So I am happy to help on either the interpretive signage or the community gardens, depending on who's doing what and what help is needed. So
Perfect.
let me know what you want me to do. Either is fine with me.
I think because there's such a, my personal suggestion would be the community garden might be nice because there's a lot of public-facing interaction with the community garden members, and also perhaps looking at locations around the city. And but I think really that's driven by whatever your preference and most interest is, or both. Are you open to doing both is what you're saying, or you'd like to do one or the other?
I think just one of the two.
Okay.
And it's maybe sounding like it would be most useful for me to do community gardens.
I think there will be more load there, so it'd be nice to have that extra sort of input and
And is there
perspective.
anybody else on this subcommittee, or would it
It looks like it would be the
all three of
Yeah.
us? Okay, all right, yes.
It's a complicated issue to find people some plots without shade in this small 1 square mile community that we have. So I think it would be good, and they will feel heard, which is important, so.
I have done a little looking, and I'll share that with Shelley, and she can share it with you folks.
Perfect.
Suggestions.
All right.
Do you want to talk about the items that we were hoping to do? Did most people saw the crazy fuchsia color on your?
Yeah, so we, again, with this sort of directive from the council to just think about the priority order and how we can kind of move through this work plan, Shelley did some great thinking about items that are sort of ready to go for June and July so that we can, again, get some things underway before the August recess. So what we have on the agenda items for June would be the reviewing the lighting design and completing the installation of the Memorial Park pathway lighting, which we reviewed at last meeting.
Actually, I think that one is just, we finished
already
that.
done,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
okay.
just going to go into the next phase.
Looking at the, I think, 90% design for the bocce courts.
Yes.
And then it sounds like that will also include some design or location options around the table tennis. Completing the analysis of potential dog park locations in Albany so that we can present the findings. So hopefully it would come back to this group in June and then it go to the council in July. So that I think they're very eager to hear our thoughts on that hot topic.
Has someone put in a plug for the May
Yeah, we should do
30th dog park event?
Right. We didn't really say that part. But yes, May 30th is the special meeting of the commission, but it's surrounding the survey dog, the recommendation, so.
What time is that at?
7, so
Okay,
same.
7, great.
Right
same
here.
meetings. Same, yes, same, just happens to be on the 30th of May. And we're inviting the community and sharing results from the general survey, I believe, and if people want to talk about any, I'm speaking.
Yeah,
for
I
you, so
think
didn't-
as a subcommittee, we're probably going to meet just to do a little planning around what that workshop will look like. But we imagine it to be like very participatory and maybe break out into small groups and do some voting if necessary. So
Wonderful. You all have done a lot of work on that. So again, I thank you so much for that leadership.
It'll be posted as an official meeting, so it'll do the normal
Will there
agenda.
be signage at like section B, and, or should we try to do that? Should we put up some
It would be great, yeah.
notifications? Okay.
Yeah.
There's another item that's about replacing the sand with Fibar in Terrace Park.
Yes, and some of these things where I'm trying to get done because Gail, my sidekick, is retiring in June. And these are a few projects that he and I have been working closely on, and he really wants to see them get wrapped up. And this one is tied into the maintenance. It's not really maintenance. We do a playground inspection annually, and there were a number of items that need to be corrected. And one of them was to replace this, add more sand to this park, but I don't want to spend any extra money on sand. It's really expensive to put sand in the parks if we're going to convert it to FIBAR. And so we'd like to get that decision and get it to you guys to consider before Gail leaves.
And I think people remember, but there was another part to this project because a beloved tree was taken out.
Yes.
That we would have the community select some sort of play equipment. That will be a separate project. It's still in our work plan, but that this would be the FIBAR would come before us as a discrete project. And then secondarily, further down in the calendar would be selecting some play equipment that could work for, since kids used to play on that tree. And one thought or suggestion was that perhaps there's a community engagement component that we could use to help them determine what that play item or play structure would be. So that's part of why they're being separated, just so we'd have time to gather input about that.
We'll do outreach to the terrace neighbors, but if they don't approve it changing from sand to FIBAR, then there won't be an additional piece of equipment, because that step has to happen because there are fall zone requirements for new playground equipment, and sand is not an approved surface. So it's kind of like, this has to be something if you want to get to the next step. If they're adamant, and some people just love sand, so if they're like, we want to keep sand, we don't care about the thing, then we're done.
Is it an option to keep sand in one but not the other part?
Yeah, it's only for the big kid playground, yeah. We're trying to get it, without talking about the whole thing, but try to get it, there's only the little kids' playgrounds, so the Dartmouth Tot Lot, the small memorial, and the small terrace keep their sand.
And then the final thing, which we're going to talk about tonight, is about the Fair Play Act, AB 2404. This is a biannual review that we do, and it's actually a fascinating report. So I want to
check tonight.
Yeah, we're going to do that next, I think. So.
And then we also, that's because now we're getting things from outside. So June, we will have a presentation on the Cornices Creek final design, which you saw the midway point, and then an update on Cornices Creek maintenance. So that will happen in June. So it's a big June meeting.
Any other comments or questions about this work plan? Again, I want to thank everybody for stepping up to take on additional projects. And I think with that, it brings us to our final agenda item that's programmed, which is the Fair Play Act, AB 2404 Youth Participation Report. And
yeah. Liam is just so interested in this. He's willing to sit through this. He's so good. But I think Liam is interested because Liam has a huge part in part of what we do concerning the AB 2404, and he is our field scheduler. So he does all the field scheduling. We have 2 fields in Albany, Ocean View and Memorial, that are used for sports fields. And so that plays one role in the policy. I don't want to read through the whole thing. I gave you guys the extra background of how the policy got passed. Basically, it's a law, and then like every other recreation department in California, was way behind, and there are still a number of them that are just now getting their act together. And when we found out about it, we started doing surveys, and we found out that our numbers were really off. We were unique in that we don't actually, at a point, we didn't offer leagues or things. We didn't run city programs. So a lot of these are based on city programs. We have a girls' basketball program and a boys' basketball program, and one of the girls weren't getting the same equal treatment or basketballs or time and schedule. But for us, our numbers that get calculated in this is third-party users that use city resources. And so initially that was we were hugely impacted by that because we have a huge Albany Little League program, and we have boys baseball programs in high school that use our fields. And that automatically kind of skews our numbers, does that too. But, and so the approach we took when we found out that we were really off, and this was informal surveying when we first started off, and you saw that we were pretty off in our numbers in terms of trying to meet the proportionate to our population. We took an approach of trying to add leagues, city-run leagues that we had never done before, and make them targeted towards girls. And so over the past couple years, and I also want to commend Eva Phelan, who's not here, but she's the person that's been organizing these girls' leagues and also has organized the Play Like a Girl event, which is coming up in June, and I'll talk about in a minute. We were so fortunate that through all of our investigation, trying to solve, like, how can we make a difference for girls in our community while maintaining still sports time and sports for boys at the same time, made a connection with Dr. Lopiana, who helped us write our policy. And her intent was to write this, and she did it for free, as a model policy for California departments. And since that has gone out, we have been able to share our policy with a number of other departments in California. And we actually passed it out and handed it out to in a workshop at the CPRS conference. And we've been getting a lot of phone calls about how do you get started and asking questions. So we're really proud about that being used. And it's also been given to Kim Turner, who we worked with, who works at the Legal Aid, I think it's Legal Aid and Work now, and the program that she's been running. So we're making progress. You know, we're not there yet, but we have put in a really, I'm super proud of the effort that we've been making, and I think that it will just continue as we go on. But we've made some pretty good progress. And in this report, keep in mind, is for our first complete year of using the new policy. So that first year was, we do a spring, fall of 2018. And the policy wants us to come back and give an annual report, and so that's what you're getting. Although we did include our kind of more informal information, data gathering from the years prior to that for you to see some of the progress we made. And then also the policy asked for me to fill out that treatment assessment, which is not super informative, but it is a chance for us to think, like, where are we? What are we doing? Is it equitable? And I think in a lot of programs you have things that are just glaring, and they need to really look at things that are inequitable. But we have pretty nice fields, and everybody gets to use the same fields, and we try to make sure that those accommodate both boys and girls. In here in the back, if you get through, I gave you the full policy, and this policy is what part of Liam's work, and he incorporated into an entirely new application process for field users that goes out. This is the other side of the work that Liam has done, is to really do a lot of outreach to girls' organizations, to work with the boys' organizations or co-ed leagues, such as Albany Berkeley Soccer, of saying, do you have girls' programs? Do you have girls' teams that are in Albany that we can try to allocate field use to them and make them our priority? Because we also try to give priority to Albany teams if possible. I don't know about you guys. When I grew up, I played sports in the town I grew up in, and we found that the leagues get so big that you might play in Richmond, you might play in Berkeley. So we wanted to get our home kids to try to play on fields that are close by. So I just gave you all of the contents of what goes out, that Liam sends out to every potential renter who wants to use our fields. And so there's the main data sheet for the data collection, which is a summary of overall, and that's what we look at as a full year. I think that's an excellent thing, because if we just look at one season, we're really off when we have the baseball, softball season, and we really make up a lot of ground in the other alternative sport seasons, which is the fall. And so that's been great. I'm just going to open it for questions, because it could be, you guys might have all different types of questions, so let me know.
I want to start down at this end, if we could. Do you have any questions, Ben?
No questions.
Reese?
Just want to say it's so great that Albany is putting in all this work, because this is a really important issue.
Thank you. Yeah.
I would echo that, and I also am excited about all the girls' sports-related events that are coming up to help sort of echo this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just delighted with, I'm sorry, I thought we were
No,
going
go
on. Delighted with the progress. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it looks like great efforts there. I had some questions about, from my own personal experience, my older daughter played Albany Berkeley softball one year, several years ago, and my recollection was that every single practice was in Berkeley, basically, and I don't know if they now use Albany Field.
I can,
You've been in that
I can
too.
speak about it a little bit if you want.
I can answer in terms of field use. There was a point when Albany Berkeley softball was on Memorial Fields. We made an agreement. It was a Title IX situation with the high school, and we flipped. So now Albany Berkeley softball is over on Cougar Field, which used to be the old baseball field, and our Memorial Field has the high school baseball in it. So they actually have two fields that are at behind the middle school, behind the main football field. that they play at.
Okay. so-
And they do get time on Ocean View.
Those are generally the older girls are playing on those fields.
Yeah, my daughter was pretty young, so, but I think everything they ever did was in Berkeley. So if there's more of that happening in Albany, that's one potentially easy thing that can be done, although I don't know how easy the scheduling is. The other thing is, my younger daughter actually played baseball in Albany for one season, and she was on a team that was her friend was also on there were 3 girls on the team, and my understanding was that was the entire content of all the girls in that entire age group out of many, many teams. And the dad of one of the girls was the coach, and he was great, Monty Stott, if people know him. And so there are girls that do play in Little League, but very few. And there's no rules against girls playing in Little League baseball, so I don't know what Liam's been doing, or if there's any more than 3 girls in any one division of Albany Little League, but that could be a potential for growth.
We do encourage them to do that, to play, and they have a number of girls. I think it's in our stats, but I played baseball when I was a girl, so I was the only girl, I think, in the league, yeah. Is that we have 2 girls' baseball teams, all girls, that are now using our fields thanks to the work Liam's been doing to actively try to get them to be on our fields more and reserve our fields. I think they had been getting field time in El Cerrito, but now it's the East Bay Cyclones and the East Bay Oaks, so all girls, which is awesome.
And where are they based? Like, what are their?
Kind of this whole area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because then it's sort of just like shuffling the
Yeah.
deck, but it would be interesting to find out if there are some girls teams that don't have for whatever reason are crowded out by the boys, and then we can serve that purpose, right? The other thing is, I was just wondering, I mean, the Friendship Club doesn't sound like they have huge numbers, but in my kids' school, there's just a sports league that's an after-school activity, and it's just an interesting way to expose kids that might not have, signing up for a team is a big commitment.
Yeah.
And so if there's ways to sort of partner with other after-school programs.
Yeah. Which would be great, because if it results in them wanting to sign up for a team later, it would be awesome. The things that make the numbers count for us is that it has to be it can be a team, but they have to play a schedule, so you have to have some sort of schedule, games, and a referee in order for it to count in our numbers.
I see.
But anything we can do to help get people interested in playing sports, that we're super into it. So I think that's a great idea to expose it through the after-school programs.
So I think that answered one of my questions, because Girls on the Run is such a huge program, and it sounds like anything with running is not going to meet any of these requirements, even despite having a targeted.
Not unless they were more like cross-country, where you actually had some sort of competition. Berkeley versus Albany or something like that. But that would be great, because any sport or anything we can get girls into that they can actually play in high school and then do in college are the best. And so encouraging, and there's a lot of new sports that are actually now college sports, or, you can get a scholarship to play them. Encouraging girls to explore those is awesome.
So I don't think there's any activity we need to take on this, but I want to thank you for that thorough report. Are there any other comments from the public about this Fair Play Act?
I'm not part of the public. I'm
please
Liam,
sit down,
obviously, for the second.
Who are you?
I
Who
spoke
are you?
twice at one Parks and Recreation meeting. I just wanted to continue on with what Shelley was talking about with our CPRS experience. Just quick cliff notes. We try to go every other year when it's in Northern California as a staff. It's a great time for recreation professionals to learn what other cities are doing, what works, what doesn't work, so on and so forth. Eva and myself and Shelley as well, we have really taken upon ourselves to kind of be a leader in this forefront. And with the policy that we have, with the numbers that we have in there, with increasing girls, with the Play Like a Girl event, which Shelley will talk about if you want to hear about it, with our Sporty Shorts events, we've really embraced this. And we are actively talking to other cities, and we want to grow this, and we want Albany to be kind of like a flag bearer in this sense. So we're going to continue to keep working on just building it and making it more accessible, and almost like a packet we could pass off to have more gender equity across California. And then the last thing on that note, I just wanted to mention that We also hold the only all-girls baseball tournament in the Bay Area, June, July-ish. It changes each year. Last year, I think, was the first year, and this year will be the second year, and we always guarantee our girls' baseball teams, like, you have field space for this. Let's go ahead and do it. So us partnering with organizations and teams and other cities, we're really trying to bring those numbers up every year, and it's evident in the numbers now, and it will be more evident as we continue to work on it. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just have a quick question for one or both of you, but I just want to clarify that events that take place on, like Cougar Field doesn't count. That's not city.
That's correct.
League Fields doesn't count. That's
Correct.
So
Yes.
really it's just Ocean View is where.
Memorial.
And Memorial Park. So those are kind of the two locations.
So those are our city resources, so anything that happens on
Tennis,
those
sure.
count. Also tennis.
Table tennis coming in, and pickleball.
Yeah.
Competitive table tennis.
Well, I was going to say pickleball. Well, so, I mean, those folks sounded very ambitious and like they wanted to play in tournaments and who knows what. But is this, now we're talking like girls and boys, is it men and women? I mean, is it youth?
Youth.
That is it in the,
It's only
in the law? Oh, okay.
It's only youth, yeah, to 17. So our city-run, if we had a city-run program and it was held at Cougar Field or at the
Little League
UC Village,
fields.
it would count.
Oh,
because
if
a
it's our
city-run-
event.
Yes, because it's.
Oh, okay.
If you think in terms of city
Like
resources.
this tournament that
It-
takes place at Little League Fields
it's-
primarily, right? Or is
It's, well, they're an outside organization, but
Right.
under kind of the Little League view. It counts towards us because it's using a city resource, which is that field.
That field
So
too,
those
okay,
numbers
okay.
count towards us. But when the high school baseball team uses Memorial, that counts to us on ours.
Right.
When
Okay.
St. Mary's St. Mary's High School uses our tennis courts for their men's and women's tennis,
Right,
those count in
right,
our
right,
numbers.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Now, the pool, if there's stuff happening at the pool, is that the school district and not the city, so that doesn't count towards the city's numbers?
Right. It counts, now they're under Title IX, so it counts in their numbers.
They have to track it.
Yes, they have to do the same thing. But if we started a swim team, like the recreation swim team, that used the pool, those numbers would count for, in our favor, yeah. So it is looking for sports that, so you saw in there, we started ultimate frisbee, lacrosse, we tried to do basketball, but we didn't get enough, and then girls volleyball. So court space is not, it's not as hard as field space, it's still pretty hard because we don't own a gym, so it makes it pretty difficult for us.
Where do you go, where was basketball being? Oh, because you organized it, it was your program, but you
Our-
didn't have it on a city facility.
We don't
Rent
have a
the high
gym.
school gym.
We have a joint use agreement to use their space, but
right.
gym space is difficult
Sure.
during high school season because they use it. So a lot of our programs happen on Sundays. That's a day that you cannot have high school sports taking place. So there's a lot of, Albany's kind of unique. Liam does a good job of juggling only 2 fields, and everybody needs more field space across California. The last event, Play Like a Girl, the event that this is really Eva's thing that she came up with, is all of these different organizations throughout the Bay Area send over if it's karate or fencing or rowing. She has a long lineup of all these skateboarding. They do demonstrations and girls can come and try out skateboards or get a little demonstration or hear a speaker. There'll be a number of professional athletes this year. The Sporty Shorts is sponsored by Luna Bar, and I think there's a new shop that's opening in Emeryville that's may sponsor Decathlon, I think is what it's called. She's just done a wonderful job. There's huge raffles and they give away sports equipment to girls. And it's just fabulous. I think I saw you at the last year at that, but
It should
come
happen
by.
10 years earlier, that's all I'm going to say.
I totally agree. Received last year were just so sweet. They're like, this is all for us, that girls felt that way about it. And I think that is just amazing. And we have people calling us from other cities asking about how they can start doing that event too. So if you can stop by and experience it, it's wonderful.
I checked with my daughter, and she's going to be with some other girls from the Albany High School mountain biking team representing.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for mentioning that.
We'll soon maybe have some space for that group, potentially. Would that count?
Work on that now.
If we,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. They have a set schedule. That would be the practice space for them.
So I think that brings us to just the final item, which is the future agenda items. Does anybody have an agenda item they want to add to one of our upcoming meetings?
I was looking at the letter from the Friends of Five Creeks about the damage to the creek from the Berkeley Fire Department's foam fire suppression methods. And I was reading through what they were saying in their letter to us, and then in their newsletter in May that she recommended that we look at. And it seemed like they're doing a lot of efforts as a nonprofit. They're trying to do all these things with the ecology there, but they're also trying to now navigate all these city and government systems too, to try to get some remedies and try to make sure this thing doesn't happen again. And I was wanting to see put out there that I would like to see, if at all possible, you know, a city structure like us get involved. Creeks are under our purview now, and they identified the California Fish and Game as being, they thought, an obstacle or not playing nice, or not, maybe not, maybe that's too strong, but kind of lowballing the numbers of the fish that died, and she explains exactly why she thinks that is, and downplaying the problem. And so I wanted to propose that we get, in the next month or so, some of them in here. So get some of them in here and some of the other parties, and try to do something at the city level and assist this nonprofit.
So if I restate that, I just want to make sure I'm understanding that the agenda item would be, what could our role be to proactively support the efforts to look at effective creek health in situations of fire, or how to sort of work proactively to prevent this from happening in the future, which is what I think she was getting at in her.
Yeah, she definitely wanted to make sure that there's systems in place so that would help prevent this. So that would be one thing, is to try to work on that from a city side, and then also more specifically to, you know, almost hold a hearing, you know, have these folks come in and talk to us, and on their, or have them, the Fish and Game come in and, you know, let them know it's not just this nonprofit that's interested in this.
I believe that, because that was the same report she gave in person to council at the last council meeting on Monday, that the mayor requested a report back, and so I would assume that would be coming back to council of some sort of report, and then we can see what's happening. Yeah.
Okay, and the mayor requested a report from the Friends of Five Creeks, or from?
I think I don't know exactly who is handling the item, but I'm assuming it's coming from our sustainability side, but a report on the incident and to bring it back to council, because she brought it up in public comment, and we haven't had a report at council about the incident, yes.
And whenever you have an incident like this, that's when the local water board would step in, and, you know, other agencies that regulate creeks. And so I imagine that it's not just CDFW, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, that is looking into this, but a number of different state agencies, because it is, I mean, any sort of unregulated release of contaminants into a waterway is a big issue, and violates a lot of different laws, and so it's taken really seriously. But it does sometimes take years to resolve, and then needs to have, you know, larger regulatory kind of mechanisms that end up governing them.
Well, in the short term, my proposal would be to have the California Fish and Wildlife come, because they've already been identified as an organization that has looked into this, and there might be some public input to them that could happen through this, through our meetings.
So it sounds like we should wait to see what happens at the council, but then bring this agenda item back when we have some information from that.
Yeah. I'd like to see how council wants to handle that, because they may just have that go into their world.
They may send it to us, they may send it somewhere else, or.
Yeah, so let's see what they say at that report, and we can kind of go from there. And I can check in with Claire to see what the status is of that.
And it would need to go to council, that we'd have to ask them to add it to our work plan, I think. I don't think it would fall under one of the existing items, so it would need to go there anyway.
I think the good news is I believe that our fire department does not use that foam.
Yeah.
That is good. That's good news.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that there's almost nothing about creeks in our work plan, and that was part of the, like, the chicken and the egg thing, you know, is like, we know there's going to be some things about creeks, but so do we put something in our work plan now, or what? And my understanding was that we are to wait for the city council to send creek-related items to us.
I thought we did have a mention of creeks in the strategic plan items that weren't outlined specifically. So they were nested under the items that council came up with. And it's to continue to support, it's to receive presentations on waterfront and creek-related items. So we didn't read that one out at the presentation because it was nested in the strategic plan items, but we do have that one, and we did have discussion with them about us taking on the open space component of our new title and sort of review.
And the vice mayor, I forgot to add that, but the vice mayor did ask for, in the ongoing projects where it says waterfront-related presentations, she said, and creeks. So it's actually in there twice.
So I would say it's already in our work plan, but I'm willing, I'm okay with waiting for city council to get their report and then see what can go there.
And we are having 2 creek things in June.
We are? Okay.
Yeah, those are the 2, Cordnesis Creek, the Pathway Project final, and then an update on the Cordnesis Creek maintenance plan.
So in terms of future agenda items, we were hoping that after the May public workshop for the dog park, that we'd have something to report back to you. So it may just be an update, or it might be a bigger thing. We'll see. But that should probably be just on the agenda in terms of update, and then something to prepare for the council, which they're hoping to see in July, right? Okay.
I think we have that in the fuchsia that we talked about tonight, but that we're very excited about that May 30th. That's great.
We should also have the Memorial Park tree coming back. June is going to be a big list. It's the 2 creek things that'll be coming from Claire, which is sustainability. Bocce, the Bocce ping pong, the dog update report, the Terrace Park sand, and then the memorial tree report. So hopefully we don't have any tree removals.
Bocce ping pong, now you have my attention.
Any other agenda items that people want to mention before we adjourn? All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.